Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we're going to be discussing Lecrae and his faith deconstruction. The holy post, or the unholy post, is what I like to call it. It's been a while since I've done a video on this outlet, which is the outlet. It's the liberal outlet of Phil Vischer and Skye Jetheni, both incredibly liberal individuals, and they have a series on faith deconstruction where they're glorifying and glamorizing it. Lecrae is the first up in this series, and we're going to be shining a light on this series. He's also perhaps the least problematic figure in this series. This series is going to feature Russell Moore and Jamar Tisby, so he's actually the least problematic person of those three names that I remember. I think Beth Moore might be doing one of them. He's the least problematic name, but we learn a lot about his fake and gay theology in this interview that he does. And I have a couple clips that I want to show you. And it just really encapsulates what he thinks authentic Christianity is. And it's not actually authentic, it's a LARP. And then what he thinks, or how he became the woke guy that he became. So we're going to be talking about those two things and shine a light on this kind of glorification of deconstruction as well. But first, I want to let you know Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering and commentary ministry. You can support us over at evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. This is our Patreon-like system, and this is the most you can do to support us. The least you can do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, or podcast if you are new. And we also have a free Evangelical Dark Web newsletter, so check that out as well. So first clip we're going to show you is, in my opinion, how he became fake and gay, as the kids say these days, which is a shorthand for his embrace of trash world. So clip number 1, which actually happens after clip number 2, but I'm going in a narrative order here.
But probably the last question, or at least the penultimate question, which I love that word. And I try to use it correctly now, although I didn't for about 10 years. Last question, so maybe last question. You bump into 25-year-old Lecrae, and things are taken off, and it's like, this is happening, man. I am so popular with these people. What do you tell yourself?
Oh man, I've thought about this so much. This is like, I'm back in the therapist seat right now. This is so much of my...
Just look at me like I'm a small white woman. And I'm just trying to get to know you.
It's a catch-22, right? Because on one end of the spectrum, would I be as useful for those people who have come out of dark places? Would I be as empathetic? Would I be it's like, I hate the thorns that I've accumulated over the years. I hate the shrapnel that has gone into my body, and shrapnel I've created for other people as well. At the same time, I don't know if you have a healthy version of me today without me having gone through that, because I'm coming from so much historical trauma. I would have had, the only thing I could say to me then that would have been hopefully beneficial, I don't even know if I would have heard it, but one thing I say is, hey, it's okay to pause and go sit in therapy and really unpack these things. Because I didn't know that I was embracing, hanging on to every word of these, evangelical pastors and leaders, because I did not have any semblance of a father in my life. Yeah. I didn't know that I was thinking that they're right, not because I've scrutinized the text and come to that conclusion, but because they're white. And white is right. Look everywhere you live. The white people live in the better neighborhoods than we do. The white people have the better schools. They go to Harvard, and so they must be right. And the class system just works that way. So I don't know if I would have been able to scratch or peel those layers back.
Yeah.
I would need healing. And it took all that trauma to see these things now, to see the classism that exists in America, to see the caste system that exists here, the theological caste system that exists. I don't know if I would have seen it.
Okay.
So
that clip sort of cuts out before he goes into, so counseling and you are enough is kind of how he ends that. I regret to not have included that portion. But that clip shows you, in my opinion, why Lecrae became fake and gay, and the answer is therapy. And because talk therapy is Freudian by nature. It was created by Sigmund Freud. It, focuses on blaming your parents, which he sort of alludes to. And you're blaming, the influential figures in your life. And that, we can talk. Well, I want to bring a guest on in the future to talk about how, the fifth commandment is, therapy tries to attack the fifth commandment and stuff like that. That's a discussion for a later day. But, you're talking Sigmund Freud influence and, a very liberal field. Even if someone puts the label Christian on Christian therapy, it's still very influenced by an incredibly liberal, incredibly political APA. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's embraced liberalism. In fact, this therapist of his is the only spiritual authority in his life. He doesn't go to a Christian church. He doesn't go to a church where he considers himself an active participatory member of. He is someone that is a consumer mindset, and it's interesting that I believe in the next clip he kind of goes off on American consumerism mentality, but that's his view of church. He's trying to consume and chase the authentic, what he thinks is authentic, what's not actually authentic, and he's trying to chase that, but he's the consumer here. So his therapist is convincing him to be woke. His therapist is convincing him, or that he's traumatized. And I've listened to the whole interview. He does not disclose anything that would be remotely traumatic. Okay, you got backlash for supporting Michael Brown. Really? That's trauma to you? And you grew up in or your first exposure to Christianity came in a white church and not a black church. That's traumatic to you? It's nuts. It's not really trauma, and this is that victim mentality culture that Lecrae is chasing and trying to, chase clout for. So that's what's going on there. Therapy is a large part of him going woke, apparently. That's what that clip demonstrated. And again, therapy, not a big fan of. I don't think it's very biblical. And especially when you look at the Freudian influences of it, I think the fruit of, and the fact that, let's also talk about how the psychology industry wants to create a perpetual system of users. They don't want to cure the problem. They want to perpetuate the problem so that they continue making money. It's a profit-driven industry. So there's my digression on that subject and a hot take for you guys that you didn't ask for. So anyway, this is the first clip that in the video. It's the second clip that I'm going to show you, obviously. And this is what Lecrae's current faith situation looks like. It is what his current situation with the church looks like. Deconstructing is, evangelicals speak for falling away from the church. Those who fall away, who've tasted the wisdom of the gospel, they've been enlightened by the scriptures, by Jesus, but they've fallen away. They've chosen to reject Jesus after hearing the good news. That's why deconstructing is bad and should not be glorified, which is what they're doing here, and by showcasing it and not really pointing to lessons learned. Because did he rejoin the church? No, this is what he did instead. And just to give a disclaimer, because I'm not going to interrupt the clip, they talk about, Lecrae is chasing authentic Christianity as he thinks of it. And he says that regular evangelical Christianity is Chef Boyardee, and authentic Christianity is the Italian food, which, spoiler alert, Americans make better Italian food than Italians do. We've improved that. We've improved a lot of cuisines from around the world. Not every cuisine, but a lot of cuisines from around the world we have improved, and Italian is one of them. And you can learn a lot from cooking Italian food. I am very good at cooking Italian food. Not very good, but pretty good for someone who knows how to throw things around. And I got a lot of that skill from watching mafia movies and TV shows like Godfather and Sopranos. You can learn some Italian cooking tips from there. You don't need Chef Boyardee. So anyway, that's just a context for. There's a callback reference in this to a joke that Lecrae makes. So here's clip number 2.
So has that made you more like, have you found a new church that you really enjoy, or do you just like visiting different places and sampling all of the Italian food?
Yeah. Seeing how close to Chef Boyardee this is.
This is what I had in Egypt.
That's great. So there's an interesting piece. There was a pretty large group of us in Atlanta where I live who were all kind of disenfranchised and just frustrated. And we started meeting together, trying to study ancient Near Eastern, Christianity, looking at Messianic Judaism, all these components. And we ended up going through this study. It's like a group study that is done by an organization called Fruit of Zion. It's like, they call them Torah clubs, where you read the Torah, and they have them all over the USA. And so we just started gathering on Saturdays, going through the Bible, and just it was refreshing. Where everyone is contributing, everyone is processing, praying, singing, what have you. And it felt kind of like a house church, but obviously it's not an elders, no deacons, and the church infrastructure that we see Paul kind of lay out in the scripture. So that was healthy, has been healthy for my family for a season. And now we're both doing that, and we visit a church. We haven't joined it, but we enjoy the tomato sauce there.
Okay.
So we enjoy it. And I wouldn't have been able to go there 5 years ago because I would have been too busy looking at how much American performance, just the culture of America has influenced this. And it's not, but now I can appreciate it for different reasons. And so we have this combo. Yeah.
Cool. And you've got your.
So this is a very ironic clip because what Lecrae is talking about is he's talking about Messianic Judaism, and he believes that is the authentic Christianity. We're trying to get in touch with our roots, ancient Near Eastern Christianity. He's talking about Messianic Judaism. And Messianic Judaism is predicated on two things, or at least one of those things is it's predicated on. The other is a very common trait among Messianic Jews, and that is hypercharismaticism. So Messianic Judaism tends to be hypercharismatic. Think about Michael Brown, but maybe dial it up some. So that's not the other Michael Brown, not the one that was shot in St. Louis or Ferguson, Missouri. The Michael Brown radio host guy. So he's Messianic Jewish, and he's also very charismatic, very much a charismatic guy. And the other thing that the Messianic Judaism is predicated on is dispensational theology. So both of these things were not practiced, were not taught by the early church. The early church or the Reconstructionists of the late 1800s or very early 1900s, they were the ones who brought back the modern conception of speaking in tongues. They are the ones who introduced that into church practice. So hypercharismaticism, very new development very new development, at least as far as Pentecostalism and how that looks and is practiced. New development in church history. And then dispensationalism. That is a theology that is maybe 200 years old. So two very new ideologies, two very American-based ideologies, and he's chasing something that, Messianic Judaism, not taught by the Reformers, because it rejects covenant theology. It is dispensational, very dispensational. When I talked about David Jeremiah earlier this week, I said I was not dispensationalist. It comes up again in this Lecrae video, which I did not expect him to say that he was going to a Messianic Jewish things. But I just think it's hilarious that he thinks that this is chasing authentic Christianity. I like their, he didn't say he liked their tomato sauce about this. He said that about another church that he's consuming. So he's consuming these groups, believing them to be authentic Christianity. And it's not actually authentic. The first, contrary to what Got Questions Ministries says, the first Christians were not Messianic Jews, as we understand it today. Just like Old Testament Judaism is not modern day Judaism. What would have, what you're calling a Messianic Jew in time of the apostles is not the same thing as it is today. The doctrines are different. The whole foundation, the practices are different. The doctrine's different. So, not the same thing. And he thinks that that's authentic. It's not, and he's still not an active participatory member of a church. So, that's faith deconstruction, and he's like, we're not just ready to, we like this church, but we're not going to join this church. And it's a consumer mindset, and he's being hypocritical about that. So that is the latest news on Lecrae and the Unholy Post and them trying to glorify faith deconstruction. Who knows whether the next installments will provide content for us. I mean, because Russell Moore's always good for a woke preacher clip. He will be interviewing with David French in a gay church this week, by the way. So anyway, have a blessed week, and we'll catch you on the next one.